fat. So it's loose fat tissue below your dermis, which is, the thick inner layer. And it attaches your skin to the underlying tissues and organs. So like all the blood tissue and all the muscle tissue, the subcutaneous layer attaches your skin to, the muscles, and it's kind of the connecting layer. Let's start with the epidermis. The epidermis is composed of stratified squamous epithelium, which we discussed last week, and it consists of 4 types of cells. And it's the uppermost and the most superficial part of the skin. And if you recall, superficial means more towards the surface. So it's your top layer of your skin. So if you look at the picture, the epidermis is this very top 2 kind of things, like the pinkish and the purplish part. And as you can see, it's very thin and includes, the top of your skin where hair is. Yeah. So there's 5 different layers of the epidermis. So for quite a small, a thin layer, there's a lot of layers. And so it goes as follows. So I listed it from top to bottom. So the stratum corneum is the very top right here in the picture. And then we have the stratum lucidum, the stratum granulosum, the stratum spinosum, and the stratum basal. And the way I remember it is this acronym that my teacher taught me. It's come, let's get sunburned, which is easy to remember because you think of the skin and it's like, no, we don't want to sunburn the skin. So it's kind of like, let's get sunburned. And the CLGSB correlates to the letters of the second word of each layer. So it always starts with stratum and then, the CLGSB, and that's how I remember it. And you can see the stratum basal is at the bottom. Basal kind of sounds like basement also, like the BAS to me. So the basement is the lowest part of your house. And that's how I kind of think of it, the most bottom. And don't really have a good way of remembering the other 4, but the acronym really helps. And yeah, those are the 5 layers. And then now we're going to go over the process of keratinization. And keratinization is the process by which vertebrate epithelial cells become filled with keratin, which is basically protein, low protein filaments. They die. So these protein filaments, they die and they form like tough resistant structures such as skin, your nails, and feathers. So if you feel your nails, they're very, firm. They're very hard, like they're not like soft and squishy, and that's keratin. It's very, it's meant as to be tough and resistant because it's a protective layer. And you can see parts of your skin, like it's pretty tough and durable. Like, I guess it's like squishy, but like it's pretty tough, and that's the keratin. And so keratinization is the process by which keratin, dies and then like regenerates itself. And so the process goes as follows, and I listed it in 5 steps. So newly formed cells from the basal, which is the bottom layer that we just discussed, begin to produce keratin, which is protein. So they produce it. And then the cells that were just produced, they move upward. And as they're moving upward, newer cells are also produced. And all of these new cells, they accumulate more keratin as they move upward. So it just keeps building and building up. And then cells also begin to die as the new cells move up because there's no blood supply. When cells die, they don't have any more nutrients, no blood, no supply. So they just kind of, disappear. And then dead cells at the top, so the top of your skin or wherever, they slough off. So they get, brushed off and are replaced every 2 to 4 weeks. So you might notice your skin cells come off really easily, especially after you take a shower or maybe you swim in a pool. And, skin cells are one of those kind of cells that just regenerate at like a really fast pace compared to like, your brain cells, which almost never generate new cells, So the process of keratinization, it happens really often. Like your body is always producing more skin cells. So next we're going to go to the dermis, which is the thicker inner layer, as we discussed. It's right below the epidermis, and it's like this really big chunk right here. So the dermis is composed of connective tissue containing collagen and elastic fibers, and it contains your blood vessels, your nerves, glands, and hair follicles. So basically, although you see your hair on the top, the epidermis, the hair actually comes from the dermis. You can see the root of it right here in the dermis. And then that's also where your nerve, you can see a sweat gland right here, which we'll discuss later. And it's just everything is in the dermis, all the blood, all the nerves, glands, everything. And it goes all the way up to the epidermis. So there's 7 main functions of your skin, and they play really big roles in keeping your body, healthy and safe. And because it's a barrier. It's the body's first defense. If you can't get through the skin, you can't get, into any of the other body organs. So it's very important. So the first function of the skin is to regulate your body temperature. So when you sweat, that's your skin, that's the glands, that's the sweat glands in your skin acting. So the sweat cools your body, it lowers your body temperature by excreting, water and fluid. And when you're cold, your skin produces goosebumps, when you shiver and you get those bumps on your skin and they keep you warm. And regulating body temperature is like extremely crucial to staying alive. So it's very important. Second function is protection. It acts as a physical barrier from foreign invaders and the sun. So, when you're standing in the sun, UV rays kind of shine on you, and your skin acts as a barrier to prevent the UV lights or any other foreign things from coming into your body. And that's why it's so important to wear sunscreen to protect your skin. 3 is sensation. So basically everything, your 5 senses, your touch sense out of those. It's all your skin, touch, temperature, pressure, and pain. That's how you feel it. So when you feel like a hot pan, your skin reacts. Your skin reacts with your nerves to, tell you that that's hot and that's dangerous. So it sends a signal to your brain and you instantly let it go. And then force excretion. So your skin removes the excess water, salts, organic compounds, and heat. So all the, waste your body produces, and it kind of just, that's how it removes it through like your sweat glands and stuff. And that's how you sweat. Sweat is basically, water, salts, yeah, and it also gives off heat. And 5 is blood reservoir. The dermis, the thicker inner layer, it holds about 8 to 10% of the blood volume in your entire body. So that's quite a lot of blood. 6 is synthesis of vitamins. So as I discussed before, the UV rays from the sun activate skin to form precursor to vitamin D. So that's how your body gets vitamin D. Although UV rays they're like dangerous to your skin in like high amounts and high frequency, but you still need to get out into the sun to get your vitamin D, and that's how your skin gets it, through UV rays. And 7 is immunity. So your skin cells interact with helper T cells, and helper T cells are the cells that fight off infection, and they fight off bacteria, germs, viruses, and that's what makes up your immune system. All right, next we're going to move on to the hair. So just some general facts about the hair. So everyone has about 120,000 hairs on our scalp, and blondes actually seem to have more hairs than brunettes and redheads in a study. And your entire body is covered with hair, except for your lips, palms, and the soles of your feet. So like the very heel of your foot. And no matter how sparse or tiny the hair is, it's all over your entire body. And an average person has 5 million hairs on their body. So not just the head, everywhere is 5 million, a lot. And the term for hair that is very thin and hard to see is called vellus. And even if you can't see vellus because it's very thin, hard to see. It's still there. So yeah. So the anatomy of a hair. Hair is made of a chemical called keratin, and that's what we discussed earlier. It's the same material that, fingernails, skin, toenails are made of. So there's something called the papilla, which is a specialized structure inside of the skin that produces your hair, which I'll show you that in a picture we have later on. And then there's the follicle, which is the sac-like structure that surrounds the papilla. So the papilla right here, and then the follicle surrounds it, and the rest of the hair root that is under the skin. So the shaft of the hair is the outside of the body. So it's the hair that sticks out of your skin or your head, it's visible to the world. It's outside of your body. That's called the shaft. And the shaft has 3 layers. So the first layer is the cuticle, which is the outer layer of your hair. The cortex is the middle layer of your hair, and the medulla is the center of your hair. So just think, cuticle out, and then it just keeps going inner, inner, inner. And then hair color depends on different pigments in the cortex, which is the middle layer. And as people grow older, the pigment stops being produced, and this results in white or gray hair. And that's why, you see old people and they kind of lose the color of their hair most of the time. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So this right here, you can see if this is the top of the skin, then it's really deep inside. This is the papilla right here, and that's where the hair starts to grow, as you can see. And then we have the shaft, which starts, it's visible to the outside world. And here's a pretty enlarged picture. We can see the cuticle, which is like the brownish part, the outside layer, and then the cortex, which is like this like really broad like white expanse, and then the medulla is the core of the hair, which is like very middle, very thin kind of thing. And the hair growing cycle goes as follows. So hair grows from the papilla in different phases, and depending on where the hair is on the body, the person's age, and where they stand with their medical condition, like if they're healthy or not, a strand of hair might grow up to 5 years. And after growing for 5 years, a hair usually quits growing and it goes into a resting phase for up to 12 weeks, which means it stops growing. That's what a resting phase is. It stops growing. And after this resting phase of about 12 weeks, the hair falls out of a follicle and a new hair starts to grow, and the cycle then repeats. And up to 100 scalp hairs per day may fall out. And normal hair growth depends on a good blood supply to the papilla and a healthy body. And you might notice after, after a shower, or if you brush your hair while it's really wet, your hair comes out really easily, and that's because water makes your hair weaker. So I would, refrain from trying to do that. I used to do that. It was not good for my hair. It's very delicate, your hair. Yeah. So this is the hair growth cycle I was just talking about. So it has kind of 5 stages. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the first one is the growing phase. So the hair is just growing normally. And then something called the involution phase, which is where it's starting to, you can see like here, it's like deeply into the papilla and like it's really there. And then it starts kind of like coming out. It starts kind of separating from the papilla. That's involution phase. Then 3 is the resting phase, and that's when it stops growing, as we discussed before. It kind of takes a pause. And then we have the regrowing phase where it starts to fall out, and it does fall out. And then a new hair starts growing from the papilla down there, and that's the new growing phase. And the scientific fancy words for these phases. The first one, which is growing phase, anagen phase. Then we got the catagen phase, the telogen phase, and then we have the other telogen phase, but this is exogen. And if you think about it, exo usually means out. So like you're getting it out. So the hair falls out. and then the early anagen phase again, which is like the early growing stage, you know, the new growing stage. So that's kind of how it works. And there's also something called, you know, like hair loss and alopecia, and that's associated with the hair. So alopecia, you might know people or someone or heard of it, and you might notice that um, they don't have hair growing on their body. And there's two types of alopecia. There's alopecia areata, where, and it's, well, alopecia is like a immune system disorder or disease. It's when the immune system attacks hair follicles and, you know, patches of hair are lost, and that's alopecia areata. So only it only attacks hair follicles on, you know, some parts of the body. And alopecia universalis is when the immune system attacks, you know, hair follicles and hair all over the body, and all of the hair is lost. You know, people with alopecia areata they still might have hair in some places, but universalis is just, they don't have it anywhere. And the most common hair loss is balding, which is not alopecia because alopecia involves the immune system. Balding is, you know, balding is actually not hair loss because hair is not lost. It kind of becomes just very fine and colorless. So it's just not visible. And, you know, it reverts to vellus, and vellus is the term we discussed earlier, it means very thin, you know, very colorless. And common baldness is hereditary, and it can be also due to hormonal changes. It's usually due to higher levels of male hormones called androgen, but women can also have this hormone, but it's definitely less common. And other cause of hair loss, just general causes, can be, you know, if you're on different medications, birth control pills, or pregnancy, chemical and heat treatments. So the reason why you're warned to not, you know, like straighten or curl your hair or use hairspray every day because it's really bad for your hair and it can result in it to like fall out. Chemical, I already said that. And diseases like diabetes, lupus, and thyroid problems can also lead to hair loss. So hair is one of those things where like you should really treat it well, and if your body is healthy, then your hair is gonna be pretty healthy too. Now we're gonna move on to the nails. So the composition of the nails is, you know, it's also made out of keratin. It's the very tough protein. If you notice, your nails are very tough, very they're not very bendy, obviously. The human nails also have three parts. So there's something called a root bed, and that's at the base of your nail, so the very bottom of it. And then there's the body of the nail that's attached to the fingertip, and a free edge that grows beyond the end of the finger or the toe. So the free edge is the kind of part of the nail. It's like if you look at your nails right now, it's kind of like the white part at the very end, and that's the one that just keeps growing over your fingertip. And so it kind of forms from heavily cornified tissue, which is kind of the keratin. And this comes from the modified stratum corneum and lucidum, which is the layers of the epidermis we just kind of discussed. And a narrow fold of the layer stratum corneum turns back to form the cuticle. And if you don't know where your cuticle is, it's like at the base of your nail, you can see like this little fold of skin. And like if you ever heard the expression, like, I don't know if you guys have ever gone to like a nail salon, but usually they like push back your cuticles or like do treatments to your cuticles. If your cuticles are healthy, your nails are generally also pretty healthy. Under the nail, there's a nail bed, as we discussed before. The nail bed is formed by the stratum basale and spinosum. And at the base of the nail, it's kind of tucked below your cuticle. The stratum, like the layers, thicken to form a whitish area called the lunula that can be seen through the nail. I don't know if you guys can see it. Mine are very faint. It's like this kind of like half circle that's white at the base of your nail. And beneath this like white half circle, the lunula, is the nail matrix, which is a region of thickened strata where mitosis, which is cell division, pushes previously formed cornified cells forward, making the nail grow. So it keeps pushing new keratin, new cells forward, which makes your nail grow. And this is like the picture of everything I just discussed. Cross-section view, sagittal view, dorsal view. This is the lanula, like the kind of like the half circle white part. The cuticle is right there, and this is where under the lanula is where the cells keep getting pushed forward, and that's how the nail grows. This is the nail body. This is the free edge, like the white part that keeps, growing. Yeah. So nails, if you notice, they're kind of pinkish in color. They're not like all white because the hemoglobin, like the blood, in the underlying capillaries of your nails are visible through because your nail cells are pretty translucent. They're not like a solid color. On average, your fingernails grow about 1 millimeter a week, and toenails tend to grow more slowly. And nails function, they're an aid to grasping, so makes it easier to grab things. It's a tool for manipulating small objects. So if you have to do something super, like if you have to it's like like when you do a domino chain and then you knock over one and all of them fall out. Your nails help. You grasp the domino and you put it very carefully in the spot it's supposed to be. So it's a good tool for manipulating really small, delicate objects. And they also act as protection. So it's part of the integumentary system, which basically means protection against trauma to the ends of the fingers and toes. So nails are mostly their protection. You might not think they're very useful, but they do act as a big part in protecting your body. All right, finally, we're gonna go on to glands. And so there's two types of glands in your skin. There's sebaceous glands, which are oil glands, and these are found in the dermal layer, the dermis, which is, as you would call, the inner layer that's below your epidermis. And sebaceous glands are found everywhere except for your palms and your soles. So there's no oil secreting from your palms and your soles. So there's something called sebum, which is an oily secretion, and it keeps your hair and your skin moist. So kind of like hydrated in a way, but it's not water, and it actually inhibits the growth of bacteria, so it slows or stops the growth of bacteria. And sebum, like you often can see it, like you can feel it on your face. So if someone has really oily skin, they probably have their skin is probably producing a lot of sebum. And your hair, you have to wash it, every day or every few days because the sebum from your scalp makes your hair oily, and it actually helps. I know we think that the oil is like gross and it clogs our pores and it makes our hair all gross, but it's actually a protection measure to keep them moist and healthy. And acne is an infected gland it's an infected sebaceous gland. So an enlarged sebaceous gland may develop into a blackhead, pimples and boils, and this starts happening around puberty, which for most people is like from ages 10 to 14 around. That's how acne starts. And the other type of gland is called a sudoriferous gland, and these are sweat glands. So sebaceous, remember, is oil, sudoriferous is sweat. There's two types of sudoriferous glands. There's eccrine glands. They're found everywhere over your body, except your lips, nail beds, and labia. And it's most numerous on your palms and soles, unlike the sebaceous glands, which aren't found on your palms and soles. And if you think about it, because sudoriferous glands are sweat glands, when you're nervous for something, your palms start to sweat, your feet are sweaty, and you have to like wipe your hands on your pants because they're just so sweaty and you can't like concentrate. That's how I remember it. And excretory ducts open at the surface of the epidermis. So there's like small ducts. And excretory, always remember, it means like out, like you're trying to push it out of your body. And so these little ducts open at the surface of the top of your skin, and that's how the sweat, gets out and onto your dermis, and that's how you can feel the sweat on your skin. And there's something called merocrine glands, and it's found in the axillary, which is your armpit area, pubic, and nipple regions. And excretory ducts also open, but these open into hair follicles. And merocrine glands are only found in those three regions, but they're all sweat glands. So that's kind of how your body, gets rid of, sweat or, water and excess vitamins and all that. Oops. So these are just pictures of what I was talking about. So this on the left this thing is a sebaceous gland. So they're always connected to a hair follicle. So every hair follicle kind of has a sebaceous gland, and they produce oil, and the oil kind of goes up here, and goes onto and it kind of like this white. The white symbolizes oil, and it kind of just goes onto the skin. And you can see how easily it could be for a hair follicle or like a sebaceous gland to become infected, right? It's very narrow and it can easily become like clogged. And then a clogged pore means basically you either have a pimple or a blackhead. And, it's very common for people to develop pimples because of that. And then this is a sweat gland, specifically an eccrine sweat gland. So it's kind of like I think the pictures are kind of fun because they're kind of curly and wavy and it looks kind of like a ball of yarn. So that's a sweat gland and it's in the dermis, as you can see. It's very deep down. And this is just a close up of what happens at the top right here. So these are the sweat secreting glands. And then they just kind of go up and onto the epidermis, the skin outside of the pore. So you can see, just remember sebaceous glands are always kind of next to a hair follicle. They kind of surround it. And there's usually two of them, but there also can be one. And yeah, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you so much for watching. I'll probably post an optional quiz or optional assignment to help you guys get to know the information better later today or tomorrow. If you have any questions, make sure to email me and make sure to check Google Classroom for, additional resources or, the recording from today. And I'll see you next week.
Hello.